Hello there, and welcome back to our time-lapse series. In today's episode, we will continue on Tomorrowland. As you're watching this episode right now, I will have released this park on Steam Workshop, including a dedicated video presenting the park finally in one coherent sequence. My goal was to finally let the park shine in its fullest potential, in a dramatic, maybe even melodramatic way, and just give it that proper grand finale that the park deserves. As I'm recording right now, there are only 3 days left until Planet Coaster 2 releases. And today is actually the day I upload this final video about releasing the park on Steam Workshop. And to be quite honest with you, I'm so excited that I can barely talk anymore, and to finally show off all this hard work over 7 years and over 470,000 pieces, and to finally show it off to you guys. Because that's so important, because otherwise this project would be hidden away in a closet and nobody would know about it. So it's really important for me, and also very personal, to know that there are some people that care about this park and actually enjoy the whole work that has been done and will be done in the future. Because it's pretty obvious that the park is far from finished. There are still so many missing rides and scenery areas that deserved a place and to be also deserve to be recreated in the game. And I mean, it would be a huge shame when I would just say, okay, the park is finished, we say goodbye finally, and move on to Planet Coaster 2 and fully focus on Orlando. I mean, this would be another option, but I think it's just shameful because we came so far in the park. We made Main Street, we made Tomorrowland, we made parts of Fantasyland, we made, Big Thunder Mountain, we made Frontierland, we made Adventureland, we even made New Orleans Square. And we made it so far, it would be a shame to just say, okay, heads off, we are good to go, let's move on. And I don't think that's the right decision to make here. On the other hand, this will mean that I will constantly have to fight against the performance, because the more areas and rides we recreate, the performance will not improve, that's for sure. It will get very bad, I'm sure. But hey, everything in life, it's always some form of keeping the balance. There are some pros, there are some cons, and I think it's the best way to continue. And I can imagine, of course, with the release of the new game, that many people will leave Planet Coaster 1, which is kinda sad. But on the other hand, this channel where you're watching right now, it will mean that we will be maybe 1 or 2 channels left that are still working on this game. It's a little bit retroactive if you want. And in a way, I think this is absolutely the right choice to represent this game. It didn't deserve be called, okay, now yesterday you was cool, but now it's you are old and you have to go and you have to leave. And I find it's right to give the game still a place where it belongs and will be appreciated, and where it shines, and where it lives on beyond its expiration date. But maybe let's come to Planet Coaster 2 now. So I saw already many content creators on YouTube from the 1st November on create content or release content that they created in beforehand when they playtested the game. And I have to say, I can't deny that I'm a little bit jealous about it. But it's just, I'm curious about this game and its potential, and I'm also very happy to see all the recent changes they made, especially with the UI. And there are still some rumors out there where maybe the performance is not on peak, and where you have also a hard cap of the park capacity of 6,000, I believe. I mean, this would be obviously a downer, because in Planet Coaster 1 we didn't have such limits. Or I don't know if we had one, but I never tested even more than 3,000 guests in a park. But I mean, it's just me. But I don't think for the majority of people and players that there should any limits to that, especially on PC. On console, I think it's reasonable that there's such limit. Just because you work with fixed hardware, you can't upgrade that, then it makes much more sense. But on the PC, nobody is limited to a certain hardware kit. And theoretically, if you have $1 million PC, then you shouldn't have any hard-coded limits that you can easily remove. Just, I mean, why make it even a limit? I mean, why invest the time even to make a limit in beforehand? In one hand, I can understand it a little bit, to maybe that they don't want to be misrepresent their gameplay when the performance is bad with 10,000 guests in the park. I mean, I can understand that. I think it's much more worse, and it gives a bad feeling about the whole thing, or an unfinished feeling, if you lock that up, because then people will start to ask questions about that in the first place. I mean, over the period of them showing the deep dives on YouTube and Twitch, there were always this certain smell, you know, that there's maybe something hidden that's locked away that nobody should see. You know, I don't think that that's really smart to do, because the core audience and the majority of players who play their game are adults and not childs or teenagers. They sense something within them if something like this is happening. And especially in today's modern world, where everything is immediately boosted on reaction and fast-paced social media world, this is not a good idea. I think it's just more honest and also authentic if they say, okay, we know we want a super performant game, but we just can't give you that. It would be so better in understanding them as a developer, just this trust in them that they provide constant updates and DLCs, since we as the players shall buy those DLCs in the future. And therefore it makes sense to obviously show everything, even if it's not that great to look at. But I think the majority of people will understand that. I think they will be even celebrated for that, because they are honest, they are trustworthy, and we know what they can do. I mean, what they did with Planet Coaster 1, it was an absolute milestone, no doubts about that. Just give the people this trust, everybody will buy your game then. It's just, I don't think it's maybe a marketing strategy just to prevent shitstorms and so on. But I think well-educated adults will understand that. But to end this little topic about that, I want to say clearly here, I do not criticize them, or I do not want to provoke them in any way. I love them for what they did and still doing, and especially what they achieve with this new game. Maybe let's turn the tables and let's look at the things that stick out the most to me so far. And there is especially one thing that shines through all of this, and shine is the right word here, because it's the lighting, the global illumination system in the game. This feature will bring this game to another level, another universe, I would say, because this will allow finally to make dark rides, realistic dark rides. And overall, everything will be looking much more crisper, much more nicer. The color palette of the game might still be a little bit too colorful, I think, but it's nothing that we can't fix with just a simple desaturation meter. So yeah, overall, the game, I think, in its general approach, how it will be released to us, looks in a great form. We get a scale feature, which is humongous. It will completely change also the workflow, how we do buildings in the game. And not only building scenery rights, especially that you can place anything that's non-crittable onto a ride is, for me, still mind-boggling. This is just unnatural cool. And I recently also saw in a video of Silver Red, there are those pistons, I think, that you can stick pretty much everywhere and connect scenery to them, and they actually move from side to side or up and down, and everything that's attached will move with them. And this obviously is completely nuts, because just imagine what you can do with it. I had this idea of making actually an airplane above the park that's flying over your park slowly, or making like a metro station with an actually workable metro, and pretty much everything that's animated or moving, and especially also for dark rides to make animatronics, anything that has a cartoonish face you can make in that circumstance. And especially the big part here is also that you can make everything in the game. And I think this is also the greatest thing, because when I'm in this game, I want to be in my creative universe, and I do not really want to exit the game, open a third-party application to make a 3D model. To make a 3D model, it's just not that convenient, When I have a 3D application and I have this overhanging context that I want to make everything in the game as accurate as I can in a 3D application, I'm completely lost, because the realism goes out of the window then, and we will be working the next 10 years on the park then. And especially for Planet Coaster 1, I always held this fact very high, to make everything what you see in the park with vanilla pieces. And obviously I want to continue with that in the next game, and do not have to use any custom scenery or wait for the toolkit manager. I just can build straight out of my imagination. And you have the added benefit at the end that when you want to look in this park and load it, that you do not have to download any extra assets. You just can load in, and there you have the park. You have this easy access to it. And another thing I saw was that I think they used that in a deep dive, and they showed off this new display sequencer, where you don't have like in Planet Coaster 1 this Excel sheet basically, where you enter the certain timings of when the things start to trigger. You have actually a nice timeline where you can put your elements, and you can exactly quick and easy slide them to the perfect timing to make them sync with your build. And that's of course something that's absolutely great for dark rides to do. Just imagine Haunted Mansion. It's completely out of animatronics, and to make those sync with sound, with animatronics, with the scenery that you see, with the direction you ride the dark ride itself, everything has to be considered there. And this will be much more easier to do with a nice and easy to use sequencer, where I can quickly drop those assets in and save time then. It's a huge time saver. And especially those features also where you have symmetry options, especially like I remember when I did the Black Pearl which you see in the release video. And the ship consists out of, I believe, 12,000 pieces, and the most pieces are wooden planks, so the 2 meter and the 4 meter version. And when I did this, I used obviously a blueprint for that to make this curvature of the ship, and I used those planks, but I first built one side so that I could basically mirror the same thing then on the other side. But I mean, when we get a symmetry option, this will be much easier to build than when I see directly in real time the result on the other side. It will be much easier to build then, because when you had to mirror something in Planet Coaster 1, you always had to make sure that you place your complete build within the world axis, so that you can use the world axis to mirror your piece. And it was always 2 or 3 little clicks to make it mirror, and it's completely nuts when you do such a big ship then. But hey, we did Black Pearl, and actually I did it under 40 hours, and I think it turned out pretty cool, I think, especially that you also can fire the cannons with of course sound effects. What I wanted to talk about is the display sequencers. The last time-lapse series was before my vacation, and I did my vacation. After the vacation, I did another marathon about 1 week, every day 8 hours or 10 hours, completely building to make Space Mountain finished. And especially the interior killed me off to make those catwalks inside. So the whole interior is done, and the catwalks inside, it was so a huge pain. And also to make the display sequencers work, because I wanted to illuminate the interior with the press of a button on the display sequencer. So you can basically select the display sequencer, press play, and then the animation of the lights go on, like they flicker a little bit before they go on, with a little delay. But I had to select each light and then enter each a different timing for the lights. And especially also for not only them, but I mean, it's a bit complicated, but I mean, I can explain it if you want. There are basically for the interior 2 light types. The one light type that's placed on the track itself is basically fake. It's only a box light that's basically turned off when you don't use it, because the normal ride is a dark ride. That's why it has to be turned off. But when you select it in the display sequencer and turn it on, then the box light actually, not the light itself, only the appearance of it turns on. And that's the trick here, because then you get only this appearance that the light is on, don't get a functional light, and there comes a second light type in, and that's just an this ambient light, which I hidden into the track itself to illuminate the ride itself. It was a bit complicated, but especially selecting those box lights and giving them all the same settings that they are to go on and then off with 2 different display sequences. There was a huge pain in the butt. Not only this, but making this catwalk just out of art pieces completely onto the whole track. I mean, the track is 1 kilometer long. It took me 1 or 2 days alone to make this catwalk. Just to take every time an art piece, turn it into the right orientation, since the track is obviously not on a non-elevated level. It's always in 3D space. And to add also the fence or the catwalk itself onto the art piece that's supported by the flooring. I mean, you know, when I explain it to you, you can sense that it was a huge work to do that. But in the end, I think that Space Mountain and also Big Thunder Mountain, yeah, I'm truly delighted how they turned out so far. They are basically a blueprint for the other rides that are still to come that are not yet finished. And they will be over time presented in the same way. And this brings me also to another topic, and that's the workability of making those rides actually work in the game itself. And that's not so easy to do, actually. Especially on Space Mountain, it was again the queue. So the issue here was that the queue essentially crossed itself multiple times in those queue buildings before you entered the actual Space Mountain. So I tried my best to cover it up, but the lower queue, when you basically enter the queue itself, it goes a little bit into the ground and then rises up again, and then you basically cross this queue on the top floor. But there were always this little tiny parts where basically the game blocks you from making it because you have those in-game limitations, and I don't want to come back to it, but again, I don't like limitations in games because it's, especially in a sandbox game where you have ultimately creative freedom, it doesn't make sense anymore to have limitations. But it is how it is. In that sense, you have to get some, you have to find a way, and I actually enjoy this process of finding a solution that works. And in the end, it's even more rewarding when you see the whole thing work at the end. So finally, I wanted to say some words about the release on Wednesday. And the first thing that I planned was to, when I first start the game, I will record everything I do, and it will be most certainly a very nerdy footage that you will see, and I will look into everything there is, into the tiniest details. I want to fully immerse myself into this game on the first day, and then try to recomment my whole footage I had, and of course time-lapse it maybe on certain spots not. Basically that's the idea here. And yeah, you get basically my first reaction when I enter the game. I will show you everything. I don't will show you only the nice parts. I will also cover the worst parts, but I just want to be honest here. But our plan is set. We will recreate the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, and it will be an absolute blast the next weeks, months and years that are still to come. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and I thank you for watching and listening to all of this. It truly means the world to me, and I can't thank you enough for that, because it gives me constant motivation to continue with this project, but also with the next project. I started to notice this especially on Space Mountain, while I were doing the interior. In the moments where I was emotionally and physically completely exhausted from building, I had always this place of retreat where I could return and rewatch my videos, see the progress, and especially the comments of you guys and reactions. And to see this channel grow and attract more people, it helps tremendously in regaining motivation and also inspiration. And it keeps me also in a state where I have constantly to be productive, to constantly bring a video out or make certain changes to the build, add something, begin a new project. In short, it uplifts this extraordinary journey we have into a real immersive experience of recreating the most iconic theme parks in the world. But again, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, subscribe, like or comment, and make sure to join our Discord server. If you want to see more, make sure to watch my introduction video, the playlist of the time-lapse series, the POVs, and most importantly, finally, play the park on your own, including the park's release video. Thanks for watching. See you, finally, and Planet Coaster 2 next week. Goodbye.